Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Hanifee. I'm an academic fellow at the University of Malaya, the English department under the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. I've got a PhD in adaptation studies, which looks at the process of adaptation between one medium to another, for example, like novel into film. So today I'm going to be talking about one of my research on early cinema in Malaya. We're looking at the local perception of early cinema's arrival in Malaya, how people of that time perceived these inventions coming into the land via Malay newspapers that existed during those times. A lot of what's represented in Malaya comes from what we would consider something like colonial reports, meaning the white man's perspective on the locals, right? There's a lot of, say, perception of us as a society being built by outsiders' perspective of us, when we ourselves should have our own voice to sort of talk of what we experience and what we perceive those things during our time. Right? I'm filling these gaps, right? And shift voices from colonial accounts to the locals. And it's very important, right? Because I do think that, if we want to sort of have an understanding of society, we have to listen to what they have to say rather than asking to what other people say about us. Hopefully your interview somehow goes viral and people will look more into more local archive work, right? Because I'm hoping that it kickstarts a sense of local archive work needs to be done in a sense that we are able to understand it, and let's hope that you see this as a centering of Malaysian voices, right? So it was very vital in the sense that if you were to take out the Jawi part of it, you're basically missing out on one part of the society, which again at the time is a lot larger majority of the people at the time. So it's like you're taking out the society's account of the experience altogether, and it's a very, very big account of what's going on in that part of the world. What are sort of the barriers, I suppose? As for me, the Jawi it's classic Jawi. It's not there's no standardized spelling system at the time, so every newspaper just went with their own. I had to figure out what this word was, and realize that, oh wait, it's the same word except this newspaper in Penang spelled it differently, this newspaper in Singapore spelled it differently. So I was like, oh okay, have to make sure. I studied two stretches of time that is within the period of 1911-1949, which is 1911 to 1915. And 1947 to 1949. So 1911 is basically the arrival of something called the kinetoscope, which is the first form of sort of light projection. So 1911 was the first time it arrived in Malaya, right? So that was important. And throughout 1911 to 1915, the invention sort of jumped between the Straits colonies, Penang, Malacca, Singapore, and then went to as well as Sabah, Sarawak as well. So that's where I was tracking. And 1947 to 1949, we looked at something called Hales tours. Those basically this 4D ride, but you use projection. Yes, there's always those risks. Newspapers are made out of basically paper, right? They can decay, they can lose their ink and all that. So there needs to be a concerted effort to retain all these all these data that we have of all the times. Digitizing this serves the purpose of, again, not just research, it's preserving memory, opens up history. We need to understand that if we don't digitize, then we suffer the loss of our own sort of roots and history, and we lose out on all those things, right?